piss. Keep it simple, stupid.
Tony boy.
I'm paranoid, I'm paranoid, I'm paranoid, bitch, I'm paranoid, I'm paranoid, I'm paranoid, I'm paranoid, bitch, I'm paranoid.
Testicles, 1, 2, testicles. That is right. And welcome back to Paranoid Radio Podcast. And this is the best show with the best content for the best listeners. I am the humble host, Trebles Garcia. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an amazing episode lined up for all of you guys today. But before anything, I want you to take 5 seconds and drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. This allows other people to enjoy the show as much as I enjoy making it. ParanoidRadio.com will be back up as we switch servers this Friday towards the end of September. So make sure you stay tuned to that and get back to ParanoidRadio.com, be able to listen to the show and also content. Check out all the content creators that we are collaborating with on a monthly basis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to jump in from the deep end of the pool and set the fucking mood. It can't always be night, and it's not paranoia if they are really after you. After your kids, after your money, after your freedoms, after your beloveds, after your beliefs, fears, legacies, and after your soul. Today, I have the tremendous pleasure to speak with a professional musician with hits on VH1, MTV, Adult Swim, and many more. A U.S. Air Force veteran, a Freemason with 10 years of experience in animation and design, and now host and creative director of his own podcast show. Please give a warm welcome to Paranoid American from the Paranoid American brand and podcast phenomenon. Welcome, bro.
I'm gonna just wait a little bit for the audience applause to die down so I can get the word in. Yeah, what a great intro, bro. You got it down, man. You remind me of like a much easier to listen to, like the Micro Machines dude, where like he could put it all out there, but you knew everything they were saying. It's mad respect, bro.
Thank you, though. I appreciate that, man. I've been trying harder to fix my situation with a ghetto setup, how we started recording in my car, and now finally being able to produce for ourselves. And the show's really producing for itself. But it's enough about me. This is about you, Paranoid American.
I'm good at that. I'll keep putting it on you because I want to know about you too.
Thank you, dog. Thank you. Check this out, bro. So Paranoid American, I stumbled upon your show and your Instagram page, and I seen you're on fire. You're publishing. So you publish comic books. Give me a little bit about that and how Paranoid American started and where they can find you, please.
So the easiest way is paranoidamerican.com. I go on and off other social media accounts depending on how spicy it's been getting, but paranoidamerican.com has got the links to everything. I've even got a few books on Amazon. So if you just search for Paranoid American on there, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff. Like you mentioned about, man, it was 2012, I think, officially is when I started a comic company, but I was working on comics since as far as 2006 when I was at Disney. But it's funny because a lot of people
at Disney, like you came in with bombs. Awesome. So, and thank you for your service also, man. You're a U.S. Air Force veteran, bro.
Well, thank you for your tax dollars, bro. They went to a great place, I guarantee it.
I bet strippers and all that types of stuff, right?
Yeah, a little wet knee lunch special here and there.
That's awesome, dude. I'm happy to be a patriot. I'm also happy to support, and I'm also happy to see you're alive. And again, I want to thank you for your service. And most of all, I want to thank you for spending time with our listeners, sharing your knowledge, sharing your time with us here at Paranoid Radio Podcast. So they could find you at Paranoid American on all platforms, Instagram, and also on all podcast platforms, right?
That's right. I mean, I just started doing podcasts maybe like a few months ago. So I'm a little bit of a baby. I'm a little bit like grandpa where like all my other friends, I jump on a stream like, how come, your YouTube page doesn't even link to your website? Because I didn't know you could do that. So, I mean, I think I'm on most podcast platforms. If I'm not now, then by the end of the year, I'm going to have everyone I know set me straight and get me all situated. But that's the intent. Yeah, you'll be able to search Paranoid American in almost any website you could think of, and I'll have some kind of filth up there.
That is amazing. And I'm really happy that you have your website. We had to shut ours down because we were getting dinged because we have some videos on Venmo, but Vimo, I believe, whatever it's called. So yeah, we got hit. So we had to search from GoDaddy to another server, and then so hopefully we could transfer all the data into there, and then all our videos and people that shouted us out. So and then people that were collaborating.
Can we just say screw GoDaddy right now?
Yeah. Screw GoDaddy.
Fuck GoDaddy.
Fuck GoDaddy. Too expensive. It's fucked up, bro. Because they got you fucking. They got you coming and going. But check this out. So you have some stuff you want to go through, and I got some notes here. I want you to tell me first about Paranoid American. What are you about, bro? What inspired you to do this? And then we're gonna get into the topics.
Man, I've been obsessed with conspiracy theories since I can even remember. I mean, growing up with like X-Files and unsolved mysteries, and back when, you know, like you were sitting on a toilet and you didn't have a phone, and I'd have like these books and magazines about like spontaneous combustion and Bigfoot and Bermuda Triangle. And for whatever
Ouch.
reason, that's what I just always went back to. It was such a I remember thinking, you mean to tell me there's people that are just bursting in the flames left and right, and like no one's even talking about it? So either that's BS or it's, you know, it's actually happening and no one wants to talk about it. So like I just remember,
Or it's a direct energy weapon cooking you from the inside out, making you go boom. One of those two, but it has to be some type of, you know, we don't even call them conspiracy theories in here no more. We call them conspiracies because that's all there is. Life-changing situations that get placed upon you because you're a fucking slave.
I heard spoiler alert too. I like spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert is, yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty much what it was. I was a conspiracy theorist way before 2001. In fact, my dumb ass signed up for the military, and like I think my second week at boot camp is when 9/11 happened. So like I joined pre-war. Like I didn't even do it out of, you know, like the big national resurgence of like God bless America. I was just trying to get some college funds paid for, and found myself in the middle of a much different situation. So it's funny because I was already skeptical. Like I remember my first week in boot camp, I was like, "Oh, is this MK Ultra? Is this what I've been reading about in books? Is this what Fritz Springmeier was telling me about?"
And you wanted to bring this up. MK Ultra, one of the first things you put on the list of things you wanted to running on. MK Ultra, what's your take on it? There it is. Paranoid pamphlet, MK Ultra. So you publicize these. This is what you do.
This is what I do. I mean, it's funny that this isn't necessarily where I get most of my my customers through. My customers come through like cute little coloring books and stickers and stuff, but behind the scenes, bro, I'm putting everything I got into these little pamphlets and comics. So this one in particular breaks down the entire background of MK Ultra from Project
and it fits in your hand. You could read this. You could read these in the bus, on the subway, on the way to work, on the way to pick up your kid from kindergarten, and most importantly, tell somebody else about it and spread the news.
That's the point, man.
Yeah, for the people that are not watching this video right now, his little comic books fit in your hand. They're filled with action-packed animation and a bunch of information about MK Ultra and many other topics. Oh, what is this? This is what that I was talking to you about. I cannot pronounce that word. Can you please elaborate?
So yeah, what I was just holding up there, aside from the MK Ultra comic, which you can get at mkultracomic.com, it'll bring you right to my website. The other one is the Homunculus Owner's Manual, and that's one that I did with my homie Juan Ayala from the One on One podcast. And we've been pumping him, and he is legitimately the nation's foremost homunculologist. He is like the country's expert, at least in Florida.
I'm about to sit on the mic with him.
Homunculi.
Like we're about to get on one on Paranoid, and I didn't even know this. Tell me more, please.
So for whatever reason, dude, Juan just like really latched onto this topic of homunculi. But for anyone that's not aware, there's you got to get the book, homunculusbook.com. It'll show you all the different types of homunculi that are out there. But the main one that grabs people's attention is in the Middle Ages. You had a bunch of alchemists and philosophers and, you know, your secret society guys, and they legitimately thought that they could create a little person all by themselves. They didn't have to go out and get a wife or a girlfriend or like enter society. They could stay in their little hermit cave and just like do weird alchemist hermit stuff and then create a homunculus, which was sort of this little being that doesn't have a soul, right? It's like a little body that can do things. You can give it tasks. You can tell it to like stand in for you even, but it doesn't have a soul. And then that opens up, depending on where you're at, sort of like spiritually, right? Now it's open to interpretation. Maybe homunculi are like these shells that can invite demons. Maybe it's just like a metaphorical thing where they were talking about something that wasn't in physical reality, but it was like a thought form or an egregore. It gets wild, and that's why we had to write a whole book on it and break it down step by step.
Were they smart at all?
I mean, perhaps it depends. I guess you'd have to be really smart to make the right kind of homunculus, but there's so many different. You can make them out of cows and sheeps and lizards. Like you
no, were the homunculus smart? Were these animals smart? Were they any type of intelligence? Bro, like Frankenstein,
if you could make one out of a dolphin, maybe. Okay. But I mean, the lists on this, it's very, very limited because again, it was just like deep underground stuff. If like the king came through, right, or like the royal squad comes through and they see that you're making all these little homunculi and it gets a little sick. I don't know how much detail you want to get into, but it's
What are the details? What are one of some of the most horrific homunculi? I can't fucking homunculus. I'm gonna call it homunculus. What
all
are
right,
the
well,
most?
well,
Yeah.
kids just like cover up your ears and put on the earmuffs, and so I
Yeah.
guess the most extreme version of this is that they would assume that inside the semen, like all the little sperm were little men, like fully formed men with head and shoulders and hands and feet and everything, and that the female womb was basically just like you could substitute that for anything. You could put it into like a glass vial and
Oven.
it would still work the same. You put it in an oven. So then
Yeah.
they would start thinking, well, what if I just put my sperm into like a cow's uterus and then like sew that thing shut? Like, well, that creates something. And then it gets into like, okay, well, what if we do it with like a monkey? What if we do it with like just name any animal you can think of? But then it got even more complicated where they would like remove the cow's uterus, then they would put the semen inside of it, they'd stitch it back up, they'd bury it under dung, like like cow shit. They'd bury it under that, they'd let it like fester and become putrid for like a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then you dig it back up, and then at that point you actually have some kind of like the startings of a homunculus. There's a lot of different formulas.
Are you fucking retarded? Wait, is this kind of like what a cyst is? Because you know how cysts have like teeth and hair and other little creatures
so
in it. Like
I mean,
it's a mini you.
so if you don't know your craft, then maybe you're coming up with like these weird looking cysts. But and I know how crazy this sounds, but in the
This
Guinness
is
Book of World Records, they've got a guy
whoa.
that's listed as having like the 8 like most renowned homunculi of all time. But there's also been so many stories throughout history where like these magicians like John Dee and Edward Kelly, maybe even like Solomon, it depends on where your research takes you, but they all potentially had these little homunculus assistants. Manly Palmer Hall is rumored to have had a homunculus assistant at some point, but this is like the highest level magic that you could possibly get into. So it's either all bullshit, right? Or it truly is like the peak occultism where you're dabbling in some things that are, adjacent to the reality that we know about.
This is foretold, and it has been told to us. Karmic retribution, bro. It has been told to us in film. It has been told to us in stories, in tall tales. As Frankenstein, even Dracula fucked around with different things.
The Golem is another big
right,
one.
right. So there's things that are already science fiction or fiction or they're introduced to you as a story, as a legacy, as a legend. But every story roots out of somewhere, something that actually happened. We like to believe here that we are probably paranormally activated and we're all in touch with that, in tune with the paranormal, in tune with the next dimensions, and in tune with these crafts, you want to say, because science does exist, like witchcraft also exists, like occultic rituals exist, and many of these secret societies are not secret anymore. They're just societies with secrets, the other way around. So I completely agree, and I believe a lot of the things that you're saying. It's just I can't wrap my head around it yet because but what do they do with these things? It was just minions, little freaking.
So I mean, they're multifaceted, bro. So at one point you might just have it do chores for you. You might have it do your research. You might just have it like go get me a beer out of the fridge kind of thing. But then there's also these elements that if you let a homunculus live too long, then it can kind of get out of control and turn into a monster. And that's actually where some people consider like the monsters and the little gremlins and goblins that are from folklore might have just been homunculi that they just like left in the fridge too long and it started to ferment,
Splice.
right? So when the homunculus is at its peak, like after, I don't know, like a month or 3 months or something, you can also kill it and use its blood to gain magical powers. You can also grind its bones down into a powder and use that to gain magical powers. And we're talking about walking on water, seeing like X-ray vision, being able to heal trees, being able to kill trees, turn yourself into an animal depending on what type of uterus you jerked off into and buried under shit. Like depending on the animals that were involved in that process, you gain different attributes. So it gets wild, bro.
It's this. Look, I don't want to bring this into this. First, you said two things I want to touch on. You mentioned empty vessels to allow other spirits to come in. AI robots, empty vessels. They have all the technology in the world and all the smarts in the world. But I have a theory where these could also be vessels to, introduce or bring in or summon different entities that could take them over. One. Second thing I want to bring in, I was amplifying on what you said earlier, and then using blood, crushed bones, I'm sorry, and the skin, which is your largest organ, your brain, which is already being studied by hundreds of different civilizations for freaking eons, right? These are things that we humans don't understand, so we try to use them and also implement our own beliefs on it, and then, you know, indoctrinate others to follow our footsteps. I am fathomed, I am blown away by the amount of research you guys have gathered regarding homunculus.
So homunculi would be the plural. The
Awesome.
hardest word is homunculologist, which is
Homunculologist.
a specialist in homunculi.
So this why ancient civilizations have like birds, eagles with like lion heads. Even the Bible depicts these kind of animals and how angels really typically would look.
Yeah, I'm holding another version of right here. This is what's known as a Paracelsian monster. And as the text here says, remember, if your homunculus appears to be past its expiration date, destroy it. Allowing a homunculus to grow old will result in a Paracelsian monster. And some of this is written a little bit tongue-in-cheek, like it's matter of fact, but this is real research. I mean, this is based on what Paracelsus actually said about creating homunculi. Yeah, like they can turn into monsters and take over.
The face of a vampire, ears of an elf, the wings of a bat. I mean, the feet of a goat. It has many different shapes and sizes, and not just one. This could be many different combinations. Wow.
Just think of Pokemon, bro. It's like got to collect them all. Just how many different animals can you jerk off into and bury under a pile of dung? For every different animal, and for every, like, if it was under a full moon or a blood moon or an eclipse, or if you buried it under a myrtle tree, or like all these different facets can affect the type of homunculus that comes out of it. And just to bring it back into like practical terms, right? Because there's obviously people that they're rolling their eyes as they hear some of this and read it.
Yeah.
So, just like alchemy, right? They would have things like, get me, you know, like you just said, wings of a bat. Well, wings of a bat is like a funny little Disney hocus pocus type deal, but in ancient alchemy or like an ancient witchcraft, it might say wings of a bat, but what they really meant was like hensbane, or what they really meant was like Amanita muscaria mushrooms. But you can't just say that, because if the authorities, you know, the Vatican or the Crusaders or the conquistadors, if they come and they say, oh, these guys are using this mushroom that's got, you know, a red cap and white dots on it, and they're using that to talk to some demon god that we don't approve of, get in there, get rid of all the mushrooms, you know. Or you might have like your competition, right? Like you're the McDonald's witch and you don't want the Burger King witch to know what you're talking about, when you're like, yo, I got the hottest bat wings in the world, and they're out there like actually using bat wings, like we don't understand why it's not working. Yeah. So a lot of that is code. So some of this, it perhaps is very realistically like a code. Like they're not actually doing the physical acts, but what they're doing is like when you bury something underground, that represents like death or like a cycle of rebirth. Especially when you talk about burying it underside dung, because dung is like the last thing that comes out of a long process. Is the tail end. But also if you plant it underground, when you put fertilizer on the earth, it grows, right? So that might represent this concept of like reincarnation. And when you get into the Hermetic principles, as above, so below, it's like, well, if I'm sort of like doing the same thing the earth does when it has to, you know, provide nutrients and grow, well, maybe like I'm causing like an actual thing to grow. And in this case, the seed is like semen, or maybe it's a thought or an idea. It's all onto you, you know?
You know, energy cannot be destroyed, only reshaped or transformed. This is fact. Even if shit looks and smells like shit, it could also give birth to another tree, which then gets eaten up by the cow, and then you eat the cow and then you make more shit. It's fucking wild. The cycle of life. It's just facts, dog. Facts. Amazing. Again, where can they find this particular comic book? Hit it one more time.
We do have homunculusbook.com, but as you know, you already mentioned, it's not the easiest word to say or spell or remember.
Homunculus. I just got it. You have to say monkey and then hum.
Yeah, it's homunculus. But if you just go to paranoidamerican.com, it's right there on the front page, right next to the MK Ultra. It's in a series called Paranoid Pamphlets, and I'm gonna have a whole bunch more coming out. I got one on the Satanic Panic, one on the Titanic, one on Bigfoot, just like any major event conspiracy that I personally like hold dear and think that more people need to understand is going to turn into a pamphlet.
You know, Bigfoot, chupacabras, homunculus, all these things, even MK Ultra is at the peak of the conspiracy world iceberg. It's at the peak. This is like the stuff that you learn through movies and documentaries of History Channel. This
Yeah,
is the
kids
easy stuff.
cartoons.
Yeah, kids cartoons. But you just made it into, elaborated it. You made it into a whole matrix. Like you really could look into this and really enjoy reading the comic books or reading the comic books to your kids or anybody else that's and you're inspired by it. And at the same time, help Patriot American. I mean, Paranoid American. Make sure you check them out at paranoidamerican.com. Now, you've mentioned also that you spent some time at Disney. Are you allowed to speak about Disney in any shape or form?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't like high up or anything. And also, I tend to say that I was an animator at Disney just because it's a whole long conversation about like the specific technical aspects of the job and the things I did. So I basically made video games and interactive things for the park. And we did music and Foley and sound effects, but I say animation because that's probably what I spent most of my time doing, was just doing tween animations or animations for all sorts of different projects.
How do you feel about the dark conspiracies revolving Disney and Disney parks?
I think they're fun, man. I mean, honestly, it's like the darkest ones. Personally, I don't know if I give the credit to Disney itself. I think that Disney, man, I got a whole podcast called Occult Disney too. OccultDisney.com should bring it right to the YouTube channel unless that gets taken down, because
check that out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So on Occult Disney, I really break down the concept that the movie Fantasia, it sort of creates a very real reality of Disney. And when Fantasia came out, it was a little bit of a flop. It wasn't really like this huge thing that everyone was expecting. So Fantasia, bro, like, it starts out and it shows you the creation of matter. It starts out with complete blackness and sound, like a single frequency, and then it gets a little more complex, a little more, and then they start showing you bursts of light, and it basically is a visual representation of the Big Bang Theory. And then they show dinosaurs evolving, and then it shows all the way up to humanity, and then immediately they jump into Walpurgis Night and witches going up the Bald Mountain, and this is where you get the first image of what they call Chernobog. This is the black god. I don't know if you ever seen clips of the Fantasia movie. There's this huge like black demon that comes out of the top of this mountain. He's got these big horns on the top of his head. And this, if you look at every other Disney villain, look, like Maleficent's a good example. You know Maleficent is? So Maleficent has the exact same silhouette with those two big horns and everything. So the point being, in that Fantasia, Disney is like casting an actual spell out into the world and saying, here's Mickey. He's going to end up being like the true magician beyond all this. And by the way, the wizard's name is just Disney backwards. It's like, yes, Sid. And then they introduce a whole bunch of characters that you see in all the movies that come after this. Owls and elephants and hippos and like little tutus. Like, these are all things that you start to see over and over again in Disney movies as it goes forward. So anyway, so really long story, because it's like 30 episodes deep already. But Disney is creating a template, right? Like if you want to be efficient, you make yourself a little Premiere template or a PSD template or like little macros and stuff to be efficient at your job. Disney developed the ultimate template. And then on top of that, then you've got like the CIA or MK Ultra, or hell, even like ATF FBI Waco style, right? Like they see, oh, Disney like programmed all of these images and all of these sounds into everybody's head already for us. So we could just like tap into it. If I just start humming, Whistle While You Work, and that earworm gets into your head, now I can like leverage that existing training that's already inside your brain and like pattern my own training on top of that. So like I can make you just get sick every time you hear It's a Small World if I intentionally play that at a level that you may not notice it and it'll be subtle enough, and then I like put a little bit of poison in your food, just enough to make you sick, right? And if I do that over time, a certain point, I'm going to anchor the feeling of sickness directly to you hearing this song. And I'm saying Disney here because then you can say like the feeling of wanting to spend money when you see a picture of Mickey Mouse. There's the other end of it, right? And none of that's far-fetched. Like, this is actual marketing techniques. But Disney, again, if you just walk up to like a family on the street, right, you have no idea what kind of values or culture or interest that they have, but you could be damn sure if you start mentioning Disney princesses or Disney stories, they're all going to know, and they're all going to have some kind of nostalgia for it regardless. So the dark side of Disney is that Disney sort of coded in that backdoor virus so that now like all the other corporations and organizations, whoever, like they've all got the keys to jump back in there. So that's my view on it. I don't think it's Disney necessarily. It was that he was kind of a dick. Like he's not a great person.
Mhm.
And the company at this point itself is like an egregore thought form corporation. It's a corporate homunculus, you would call it. Like the Disney
The way
Corporation
you brought that back.
as a conglomerate, bro. Like it itself is so much greater. Like it has its own, essence that is not under the control of even a CEO. Because if the CEO screws up, they just fire him and bring in another one. It's like the
Mhm.
beast is just like going to keep growing and feeding.
Yeah, no matter how many flops it has, no matter how many Star Wars they can ruin. it's,
Well,
this,
that's a good theory too, though, bro. Is that they might intentionally flop a movie just to get people to rewatch the old ones so that they can compare it again. So if they drop like a new live action mermaid, right, and everyone's complaining like this is never as good as the original, and some people are like, I don't really remember the original, or I didn't see it, or I didn't show it to my kids. Oh, you mean I can't buy it? Like you can't just go to the store and get it because it's in the Disney vault? Oh, I guess I got to get Disney Plus. And isn't that crazy that like they'll drop a crappy movie and then it's just like gets people to rent Disney Plus and then they make that money back. So it's
there
like
is no,
loss leaders.
yeah, no bad publicity, bro. And
Yep.
what you said about the programming and using the acoustic properties within the movies and the sounds and this and the music and all this stuff is true. This is why McDonald's uses red as as the hungry color. It makes you
Or and
hungry
why
automatically.
car commercials are gonna play like the favorite song of whoever the generation that's about 40 to 50 years old, whoever's got a little
That's where
bit
the
of
money's at.
expendable cash, the kids moved out of the house now. So like that's why we're starting to hear commercials that got like Mob Deep or like Wu-Tang or J, like like
Yeah.
something from I'm giving myself up on my own taste, but yeah, like all of a sudden like that, like the 80s nostalgia wave comes back in. That's not just because styles come in waves. Nah, bro, that's because they invested a lot into that PR campaign and they're
Yeah.
just going to tap right back into it.
This is why they also, I think 70%, correct me if I'm wrong, 70% of all the commercials that are put out on the radio stations and the mainstream channels of every single TV set that you own at your house is directed to the woman of the house, because the woman of the house has the purchasing power. They are going to feed the kids while you're at work if you have a nuclear family, and they're also going to make sure that, even at that, even at the end of the day, the laws protect the woman keeps the kids, and whatever you feed the woman will feed the kids. And then you have generations of just profit. No bad fucking plan. If you control both sides of the war, you have a never-ending fucking profit coming to your margins will never plummet. It's amazing. It's amazing. This is why the military uses green, because green is the largest fucking spectrum color that we see in our eyes. It might be irrelevant to you right now, but if you think about it, you weaponize colors, you weaponize frequencies, you weaponize TVs, everything. You get programmed. I mean, you're getting programmed and bombarded on all five senses. Everything you touch, everything you eat, everything you hear, everything you see, everything you taste even is, indoctrinated or dominated by a huge corporation that operates like a freaking beast in many different fronts. It's amazing, dog. It's amazing. And at the same time,
and then apply that to like government too, right? Like government's
Oh.
also an egregore that is bigger than anyone can do at this point. Like
yeah,
like even imagine you're the president, right? Like the president's nothing compared to the machine that is just the state. You know what I mean? Like the state will squash the president the second that the president is inconvenient to the state. And
That's
you
why they
can't point
say.
your finger. Like a lot of people are like, oh, they're out to get you and they want to squash you. Like, YouTube, they're out to get you. Bro, YouTube at this point is like 100,000 chat GPT scripts that are analyzing your footage, and you're just arguing and pleading like, yo, please, I promise I won't say any more bad words, but you're just talking to an algorithm that doesn't really care.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, right, it's almost like the algorithms are running companies, and it's going to keep, and so you brought up like, what about AI? Maybe that's this homunculus. I don't want to break your heart, bro, but Stanley Kubrick beat you to that punch way long ago, talking about Disney. There was that movie that was kind of a flop called AI. I don't know if you remember that. It was basically a modern retelling of Pinocchio, but instead of like a wooden doll that wants to be a real boy, it's this like cyborg skeleton that gains consciousness somehow, or like, at least it gains like intuition, and then it wants to be a real boy. It's basically the homunculus that wants the soul. Like just like Pinocchio, he is a homunculus because they wish, and then an angel comes out of the sky, right, and then gives them a soul with magic. So the AI live action remake that I think was early 2000s, that was originally supposed to be directed and everything by Stanley Kubrick, and he based it explicitly on the concept of an alchemical homunculus from the Middle Ages, the exact same ones I was just showing you about, like the cow uterus and the
What?
dung and all that. He was explicitly trying to make it a movie that was like a 1-to-1, and I mean, Kubrick being a master, like you wouldn't have realized it without him beating you over the head with it. But unfortunately, he passes before that movie comes out, and it gets taken over by Steven Spielberg, who's kind of like the exact opposite when it comes
Yeah.
to who's willing to play ball. You know what I mean? So AI is almost seen as like this ritualistic humiliation of Stanley Kubrick, where it was like, look at this thing that you were gonna, instill all this arcane, knowledge from the Middle Ages, and I'm just gonna make it this crappy, flop that doesn't represent anything other than, corporate sort of special effects. And I think they kind of successfully did that. But man, Kubrick was already saying AI is going to be homunculus, and this is like 90s before Chat GPT was anything.
Wow, I was 90. I'm a 90s baby, and he probably said it before that behind cameras. I was still swimming in my daddy's nutsack when this was happening, dog. Okay, whoa, again. Paranoid American. Make sure you check him out at paranoidamerican.com. And this is a huge freaking episode because I'm lost for words, and you're bombing the fuck out of it. Now, to continue the bombing, I want you to bring in MK Ultra. This is gonna be probably the final conclusion part that glues everything together, everything that came out of your mouth. I want you to tell me, when you also mentioned at the beginning of the show, when you spent time in the military, you thought, and you even told me behind the scenes when you were writing to me, that it felt like it was brainwashing. Give me a little bit about that. What was your experience that made you think that? Why?
I mean, it was like, as soon as you get off the bus, bro, I could already see, for anyone that's been through boot camp, but this was how the Air Force worked. It varies differently, but Air Force is unique in that if you're in the Air Force, everyone goes to Lackland. Like, there's not a single person that's in the Air Force that didn't go to the exact same spots that I went through. So you get off the bus, and the first thing is they just start screaming in each person's face. They just go 1-to-1 to 1-to-1. And I think what they're doing at that point is they're trying to just see if they can break you just from you being razzled off the bus and screaming at you. So then they get you in the process, and they have you just like sit down in this room. Like, everyone's in civilian clothes. They're freaked out. It's middle of the night. Like, you don't know anyone that you're around. And I remembered, and this was when it first snapped. There was a kid. I won't say kid because we're all like 17 or 18 in this room. There's a few outliers, but this kid next to me has had to pee the entire time, bro. Like, when he was on the plane, he had to pee. But then when we got off and got on the bus, like, he still like, and he was so terrified, and he didn't want to ask anybody, right? So he pulls out a water bottle and he pees in the water bottle and he hides it.
Oh God.
And like, I just remember seeing it, like, man, what kind of weird behavior? Like, if you ever saw someone doing that in public, you'd be like, yo, what the, like, just ask someone if you can go to the bathroom. So it's just these like little steps where they're testing, right? They're going to be like, who's like too afraid to ask to go to the bathroom? Who's like so afraid, like, if I'm yelling someone's face, are they going to snap at me and yell back, right? Like, who has like little chinks in the armor that I can just drill into, and they're just making mental notes. And the biggest one was, as soon as we got up to the barracks, the night one, bro, like, as soon as we get out of that room and fucking, piss pants actually gets a chance to go to the bathroom, we get in there, and there's 3 drill sergeants, and one of them is basically saying, like, go to your bed, unpack your shit, like, start getting ready. Another one is saying, go into the shower, take off your clothes, get, like,
holy snap,
all that crap.
Yeah.
And then the third guy is just yelling, just like, go, 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 just like, so you see people, it's almost like a gauntlet, bro. And I had like come in first and went through it. So I'm like, I decided to go to my bed, like the first guy said, and I kind of like ignored the other shit going on. I just figured if I hear one thing and latch onto it, I'll go to the one that I wanted to do the most. So I was like, I'll go to the corner here, into the back corner, and like hide and like put my shit away. But I could just watch people coming in the door, and you would just see like who it affected. And every once in a while, bro, there'd be someone that would like, huh, what? And they would listen to the first guy and then hear the second guy say, no, go into the shower. And you'd see him like hesitate and turn. And bro, just like any high skill, like race car drivers, or hell, just like driving in traffic, right? It's hesitation that's usually the worst possible thing that someone can do. Like, even if you're going to do a dick move on the road and like cut someone off, like, just do the whole motion, because at least when they see it coming, they know how to react. But if you're like halfway, cut someone off and then swerve back into your lane. Like that's way more dangerous. So anyways,
Yeah.
you would see these people like start walking to the bed and then be like, no, get in the shower. And eventually they just are walking into the shower with all their clothes on, everything, and just getting all wet. And then they're getting yelled at, like, what the hell are you doing? You still got your clothes on, you know what I mean? And it really was just like, how far can I break these guys down? And I remember at that exact moment, bro, night one, I was like, oh, like, I didn't say MK Ultra in my head, but it was like, oh, they're like, it's a test. And like that guy just failed the test. And that guy over there, like, he's about to fail because I can tell
Oh
that he's got the
God.
same posture as that guy had when he was going through the door. So by the time he gets to like the third sergeant, like for sure that dude's getting in the shower. And sure enough, bro, you could almost like see. And
That
me just
pattern.
being a 17-year-old shithead seeing this, I'm sure the drill sergeants are like, before you even get off the bus, they're probably making bets like, yo, the kid with the afro, like for sure he's getting in the shower, right? You know what I mean? And and on the tail end of this too, like I want to just go on about boot camp, but I also got into a little bit of trouble in the military. I'm not going to expand on it, but on my way out, I had to go through military confinement, and I was in there with some previous drill sergeants. And sure enough, bro, like exactly what I'm talking about. They're like, oh yeah, bro, we would put money down, we would like intentionally
Wow.
like have competitions about like who could get the new recruits to do the craziest shit possible. And then like it was like a big game and like a party, which kicking back, bro, like I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I blame them because you're in this sort of environment and it's like, yo, did you see this kid peed in a bottle? Like
They did it
did
on
we get
you,
this
can
kid
do it
to
on them.
poop in a bottle? You know what I mean? Like it's always about like, just having fun with it at a certain level, but that's behind the scenes. Like you would never ever as a recruit see your drill or your TI in that sort of a mode. Like, and again, that's because of the programming, right? Like your programmer can never be your friend in that sort of situation.
That is sticky. That is sticky as hell. And for you to compare it to MK Ultra means a lot. So, you have to have mental fortitude. You need to be extremely freaking tough mentally, mostly mentally. And obviously then you have the factors of your body wearing down, running and puking. And even that's part of the breaking process, I bet, right? I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Damn. Yeah. And then the
Well,
training
that
with the
and
weapons.
sleep deprivation. I mean, and talking about MK Ultra, man, like the number one name that nobody ever brings up that I would say is Dr. Jollyton West. He was also named as Jolly West. And that's because apparently he had like a Santa physique and like a jolly little chuckle, but he was also one of the most horrific MK Ultra mind control experimenters. And he found out that beyond anything, beyond torture or drugs or psychedelics or any of that, hypnosis, sleep deprivation by far is the easiest way to program somebody. And all you got to do for sleep deprivation is wait for someone to start getting tired and wake their ass up. I mean, there's nothing else to it. So if you look at boot camp, that's basically what the entire in the Air Force when I was through, I think it was like a 6 to an 8 week process. So it's just nonstop taking teenagers that are used to being able to sleep in and go to bed whenever they want. Well, now it's like you're up at 4 a.m. and they're just going to run you ragged until the end of the night. And then you're going to get right back up early. And part of it's sleep deprivation. Like they would come, TIs would come in the middle of the night, banging pans and like, like air raid, like just making you do crazy stuff. And I think that really is to break your brain, is to like turn it into a brand new bowl of putty that they can like reshape. But I mean, and it's not a bad or a good thing in some ways. Some people truly get in the military and their brain is just a disorganized, heap of a mess. So sometimes that structure really helps people out. In other cases, it might be like the straw that pushed them over the edge. I mean, Timothy McVeigh, Ted Kaczynski, the list goes on and on. Charlie Manson. These are all people that maybe if the CIA or MK Ultra didn't push them that extra step, it wouldn't have turned out the same way.
That's absolutely fuck. I could only think about all the things they weaponized you. You literally made, and then you have all the people that have the negative outbacks, like they become stuck to pharmaceutical shit. They have PTSD and after war, and then they're never the same. I have a cousin that went to the army, and he was never the same. He got into alcohol pretty bad, and now you can't give him a beer without him thinking the beer is a grenade, and he starts throwing the grenade. It's wild, bro. It's wild that people are really going through this. It's absolute wild. American Patriot. I mean, Paranoid American. I'm so sorry. Just I keep thinking about American Patriot. We're gonna have him on next up. Paranoid American. I wanna thank you so much for spending the time here with us today and bombing the hell out of this podcast, bro. Please let us know again where they can find you.
Yeah, paranoidamerican.com. Check it out on Amazon. I've got an Etsy store. I've got like, again, any platform you can think of. Spotify, you should be able to find me on. I also, we started this out talking about my background in music. You can check me out if you look for Sound Scientists. I think the last solo album I put out was like 2009. So we're going on like 2 decades in that too.
I gotta check them out.
All that. Instagram is where the spicy memes are at. Twitter is where even the spicier ones are at. I got a Patreon. The Patreon's got previews of all the stuff I've been working on. And I mean, we're talking like 800 pages of original content, a Steam game that's coming out. I got tutorials on how to do AI. If you look for Paranoid Programming, it's a free series that I got. It shows you how to do AI voice work, AI animations, everything.
I gotta look into this.
Everything that I've learned at Disney, I'm trying to like just put it out for free. Here's the tools of the trade, you know, but like my tools of the trade are already 20 years old at this point. So I'm trying to also teach myself like the latest tech in the context of how it used to work. So, you know, occultdecode.com, another project I'm working on. It's got a gematria calculator. It's got like tarot calculators. So yeah, I'm trying to get my fingers into a little bit of everything, man.
You are, dude. You're well versed. You have a lot of experience from what I see, dude. Way more than I could ever comprehend at my lifetime, at my age. I am absolutely blessed and honored, and it was an absolute pleasure to have you on, dude. I mean, wow, you are a work of art. You're a freaking a publisher of a comic book that you could find on all podcast platforms. You can find his podcast. He's doing music. He was on VH1. I mean, I'm starstruck in a way. I want to thank you again for being here with us, dude, and spending some time on Paranoid Radio Podcast. Make sure you check them out at Paranoid American, paranoidamerican.com. And you're also going to be able to find them on paranoidradio.com this weekend under the list of special guests and links. Make sure you cough up one of these comic books and check them out on YouTube.
Or 5 or 10 or 20. I got them.
That is right. And drop off a 5-star review on his show. It's going to help other people enjoy the show as much as I enjoyed making this episode. That is right. And you can find us at Paranoid Radio on Instagram, and soon on paranoidradio.com. Do not forget, thank you so much for being here. I want to thank God for allowing me to be here today also, and every single one of you for listening to the show. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, praise be, man. Thank you so much. This was dope. You're a pro, bro. You're a pro.
Thank you. I try, bro. I try. Peace out, man.
Paranoid Radio.